Now, I've been a hardcore Castlevania fan since the first game on Nintendo. I even played the hell out of Vampire Killer on the MSX too. It's been my inspiration for writing my book, Castle of Calamity on Death's Door. So naturally, when I heard of a Castlevania show, I got excited. Simon Belmont is a masculine figure to look up to. He's a highly trained warrior, hell-bent on putting Dracula's forces in the dirt. I wanted to see Simon Belmont on screen, but they gave me Trevor. Figured I'd bide my time, wait until Christopher did his thing, then I would see Simon in Season 3. That's not what happened. You see, we were given Trevor Belmont, a Belmont I was never fond of, because it took a 4-man squad to drop the Vampire Lord. In the Netflix version, they got rid of Grant Dynasty. You know, that lovable pirate captain you find in the clock tower. I can only guess why they got rid of him. But never mind all that. Let's get back to Trevor. Castlevania is about Belmonts defeating Dracula. Yet, we didn't get that in the show. Dracula whooped Trevor's ass, and he and Cypher spent the rest of the match catching up to Alucard and Vlad, only to find the battle over when they get there. Dracula was busy collecting Alucard with a crispy chicken combo meal with no drink until he let himself get iced by his son. Trevor hit Dracula once with the whip. That's it. So Belmont couldn't do his job. Your one job. Kill Dracula with the Vampire Killer. After that travesty, I'm thinking, hey, since Trevor couldn't do it, maybe a real man would beat him. Simon Belmont would get the job done. But the back of my mind was telling me that they would skip any masculine men that don't need help from women. And they did. Netflix skipped straight to Richter, the man that shamed the Belmont name and the reason no Belmont touches the whip until Julius. Let's get down to this Nocturne. Yo, Kaysen, drop that ether. Now, the first thing I noticed was the introduction of characters that don't exist just to fit a diversity quota. Running down the clipboard ticking boxes. Another thing I found weird was Richter casting magic like a mage, fire bolts and flamethrowers. Belmonts have their own set of magic separate from magicians. I forgave that though. I was also confused as to why they're in Boston, Massachusetts. It didn't really serve any purpose other than the Deep Six Richter's mother. I will do my very best not to address Aurochs. Anyway, what I will address is Maria, you know, that sweet girl from Rondo of Blood, throwing birds, tigers, and dragons. Well, they made her an insufferable bitch in this one. And apparently a 12-year-old girl is the leader of a French revolution. Why are we in France? This should be starting at Algebra, Transylvania, strutting towards Dracula's castle with a handful of reasons to whoop his ass. Instead, we watch Richter play second fiddle to Maria, who's holding hippie rallies in the woods. By the way, why is Richter holding a leather whip? Simon powered that thing up long ago. Richter never even seen the leather version of the whip except in the non-canon Dracula X intro. Other than that, it should be steel chain with a spiked Morningstar tip. This garbage show is made by people who don't know what Castlevania is, so they feed us slop. So we reach Maria's home with her mother, and they're just chilling and talking. Then out of the blue, with no reason at all, some monsters show up at the door like Jehovah's Witness. Richter, Maria, and her mother step outside and get into an RPG battle formation. This fight only exists to have Black Annette save Richter in this battle, and introduce slavery tirades and more unnecessary diversity. Moving on, Netflix decided to call this Nocturne, but they decided to adapt the story from Castlevania Bloodlines. Instead of the Dark Priest Shaft reviving Dracula by a virgin sacrifice, we get Elizabeth Bathory, vampiress niece to Dracula, and a threat in 1917. It's 1792. You're a little early, woman. I'm following my notes, so some things may be out of order. Not that it matters, this Netflix show is trash and an insult to Castlevania fans. So, Annette is now a black witch magician fighter that's descended from a god. Hey writers, any other titles you want to hand this chick since the show is mostly about her? Now, when it comes to fights and how they maneuver in this show, it seems more like a bad Dungeons & Dragons team instead of Castlevania. Hell, the enemies show up like it's Final Fantasy. Every few steps a random enemy would show up out of nowhere. It was like I was watching The Walking Dead. So, these side characters nobody cares about gets waxed, and the writers try to evoke some emotion out of the situation. It doesn't work. I care about them as much as I care about Miles Morales. I will give a quick mention about the Devil Forge Masters. Why are they still being talked about? Curse of Darkness is over. Leave those jackasses in the past, as it feels pointless in this. They serve no purpose at all. The Devil Forge Masters were only used to turn a black singer into a monster so he could screech for 8 episodes in a cell. The others just stand around there in a dungeon. No purpose. Alright, so after all the things I've seen halfway through, I now call this show Diversityvania, Rondo of Color. My second name is Castlevania Bathory X. I think I like those names. Anyway, I suspect they did all those changes to basically introduce black slaves, plantations, and white vampire masters. It's safe to say there are no masculine capable men in this heaping pile made sure of that. They introduced Juiced from Harmony Dissonance. Still, no mention of Simon. He's basically there to say he's a deadbeat father, grandfather, and get himself captured off screen. All that just to showcase Richter doing Grand Cross, which was done without training or a crucifix. He did it like he was turning Super Saiyan. Then immediately after, Richter somehow goes into an avatar state and can use all the elements. Then I got to thinking, this seems awfully familiar to me. Who does this remind me of? Oh yeah, Nathan Graves and his dual setup system magic. Netflix ditched everything that made Richter and turned him into Nathan Graves. I love Circle of the Moon, but you know, Circle of the Moon had Dracula in it, and a better story. So we get to watch Richter cosplay another character for the remainder of the show, changing power-ups and card magic from the inventory screen of a game he wasn't in. Side note, when I got to episode 6 or 7, I realized Annette takes up far too much screen time for a show that's supposed to be about Belmonts. Anyway, Elizabeth Bathory, she's like 10 or more feet tall and has hair like one of those naked troll dolls with the jewel belly button. Instead of her role in reviving her uncle Dracula, this version has a god complex. Hell, they even call her the Vampire Messiah. She's leading a court with a girl boss Drota, who seems to be cosplaying Megan the Stallion, Megan the Mare, whatever her name is, black chick with neon pink hair and high platforms with no heels. In case you don't remember Drota, she's that decrepit old hag in the instruction manual of Castlevania Bloodlines wearing a hooded robe. Bathory is unstoppable, untouchable, unmovable, unreasonable, all-powerful, almighty, the Devourer of Light, Queen of the Vampires, and God Sekhmet. Jesus, she has a string of titles longer than Robert Baratheon. She's literally too powerful to fight, so the team dips from the battle. They get attacked again later, and out of the blue, 5 years ahead of time, Alucard shows up to save Richter Deus Ex Machina style. This show is a steaming pile of garbage, not worth watching in the least. After taking a gander at this mess, it had me wondering, maybe the writers should be worried about being replaced by AI if they're going to be this out of touch and off-brand about a franchise they have no interest in. No Dracula, I ask. They would probably respond with, having Dracula revive every 100 years would get old. Well, if you didn't want to do a Castlevania show, then you should have made another show you could push modernized agendas into. You can tick and check all the boxes to keep the cult happy, while the negative reviews roll in. You'll just blame racism anyway, like other cardboard NPC characters roaming about this world like Elder Scrolls peasants. It's time for better writers and management. Like Papa John's, you need better ingredients. These people are scraping the bottom with dirty hands and producing a shit meal akin to a Rax burger. Alright, I'm done. Show is bad, and they should feel bad. Find people who are passionate about the project before you release any more stinkers.